We're waiting.
What is up, Star Wars nerds? Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 60 of Brett on Fett, and it's a special Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary episode. May 25th, 1983 marked the debut of Return of the Jedi in the theaters, and it was one of the most vivid movie-going experiences I can remember of my childhood. I was totally blown away by this movie. And in celebration of the 40th anniversary, I do want to go over a ton of stuff today, starting with a quick recap of all the 40th anniversary line figures that Hasbro has put out for the Black Series, the Vintage Collection, the Retro Collection. Then we're going to be counting down my top 5 favorite vintage Kenner Return of the Jedi figures and my top 5 modern Hasbro figures. And then we're going to go over the favorite figures from the vintage era and the modern era for a ton of fellow YouTubers and media members in the Star Wars toy collecting community. I'm very excited about that, and I want to thank my fellow YouTubers that have participated in the intro video and giving me your thoughts on your favorite figures. I really appreciate it. And it's going to be a ton of fun, so park your speeder bike, grab your favorite Kowakian monkey lizard pet, pull up your favorite Emperor's throne, sit back, relax, and let's talk some Return of the Jedi. And I first want to quickly recap all the 40th anniversary line products Hasbro has put out or has announced. And it's a lot, so let's just watch a quick montage of all the 40th products. And here's just a closer look at some of the 40th anniversary figures and playsets from my collection. You see I've got this Wicket and the awesome Boba Fett from the Black series. Love that blue sky card back. Now that's a look at the Woof and the Yak Face, but that's not the recent 40th release. That's the original release I already had. And there's that awesome Scout Trooper that came with a speeder bike, of course. There's the Admiral Piet. Absolutely love that card back, and the figure's pretty good too. It's a really solid figure actually. Then the Indoor Rebel Commando Scout Trooper disguise. I just picked up that one with the indoor bunker. There is the Nikto Skiff Guard, great reissue. I really needed him for my collection. And there is the Biker Scout from the Retro Collection, one of my favorite vintage figures from the day, so I had to have that one. And there's a look at the AT-ST. I really like the way this one turned out. It looks fantastic. And there is my latest 40th anniversary pickup, the Indoor Bunker. Really just wasn't that impressed with this thing. I thought it needed a lot more weathering. Majority of it is just that plastic gray. They have some nice vegetation on there, but I really thought they should have added some more weathering when I got this thing in hand. And there is the Chewbacca that came loose with the AT-ST, just a reissue of him, and the awesome Woof and Nikto figures. Excellent figures. Was really glad I was able to pick up extras from these reissues to really appreciate these guys out of the package. And of course, there are my speeder bikes. Really liked the combination of the new Scout Trooper and the speeder bike. If you haven't already, go check out my review of this set. But yeah, overall, really happy with it. I was a little disappointed with the color of brown they went with. But other than that, great set. You can see I've used an indoor Luke for my extra one there. But yeah, very happy with the amount of products Hasbro put out to celebrate Return of the Jedi. Alright, next I want to go over my top 5 favorite vintage Kenner figures from Return of the Jedi, and then we'll go over all my fellow YouTubers' picks for favorite Return of the Jedi figures from the Kenner era. Now, one rule I made for myself as well as my YouTube friends is that it has to be a figure based on a character or a version of a character specifically for Return of the Jedi. For example, the Boba Fett on the Blue Sky Return of the Jedi card back does not count because it's the exact same figure that was put out for Empire Strikes Back. They just repacked it on the Jedi card. So it's not a specific version of Boba Fett for Return of the Jedi. So unfortunately, that's one example of a figure that will not count for this poll. So with that being said, let's take a look at my top 5 vintage Kenner figures from Return of the Jedi. Alright, before I get into this, I just want to say that a lot of these picks are going to be deeply rooted in my love for these figures as a child, and not so much an objective opinion on what the truly best Return of the Jedi Kenner figures are, you know, based on paint apps or articulation or whatever. The Return of the Jedi line was the first set of figures of my own as a kid. Everything we had before that from A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back was really my brother's toys that I would just sneak into his room and play with. So there's just way too much influence there to not affect how I pick these figures. So that being said, let's move on with this top 5, and I just couldn't help myself. I had to put in an honorable mention there, and that is Max Rebo. Max Rebo came, of course, with the Max Rebo band set, and he was my favorite character from that set. I just love the look of this alien, and his piano is amazing. This was a really amazing accessory at the time. I had so much fun playing with these guys, especially Max Rebo. Again, cool looking alien, a great figure sculpt, and just an amazing accessory with his instrument there. So I just couldn't help myself. I had to give Max Rebo a shout out. And kicking things off at number 5, I picked Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight outfit. A lot of collectors are probably going to be scratching their heads at me with this one because this is a very popular figure for the Jedi line, and it is an awesome card back, by the way. It is probably my favorite card back in all of the Return of the Jedi figures, but I never had this figure as a kid, and I think that probably influenced me picking it so low. I don't have that nostalgia for it. I don't know why I never had him as a kid. I think probably he was just always sold out or whatever, so my parents never picked him up for me. But he is a great figure. I like the cloth goods. And, you know, he came with either a green lightsaber or a blue lightsaber, I believe. And I think there's a couple of weapon variants as well. But I don't know. It's a great figure. Just don't have as much love for it as I do the others on this list. So I put him at number 5. Next at number 4, I picked Emperor's Royal Guard. How many of you out there as a kid, when you first saw these guys in the film, were fantasizing about what they could do in a fight? It just stood there looking so badass, and you just knew if these guys were in a fight, they were going to do something awesome. We never got to see that, but it was always cool to think about it. And so I think that's what drew me to this figure, but also what drew me to the figure was that color red. It really pops. We hadn't really seen anything like that in the Star Wars toys before this guy, and the hood design looks so cool. But yeah, that red, man, this was an awesome toy. I just had to have this. It just screams bad guy and just totally cool. Next at number 3, I have Squid Head. Not only was this one of my favorite figures to play with as a kid, this is a figure that stands the test of time. It is a truly awesome head sculpt. The mold for the hands is really cool. He comes with cloth goods. I mean, what's not to love? But yeah, truly the best part about this figure was the head sculpt. I really believe that if you took that head sculpt and reused it on a modern figure today, I wouldn't bat an eye at it. It just looks that great. And it's a cool card back as well, so overall, great figure. I switched back and forth between my number 2 and my number 1 pick, I don't know, maybe a dozen times before I settled on number 2 as the Biker Scout. This was such an awesome trooper that came out with this film. I was like, wow, that is the coolest stormtrooper I've ever seen with these guys. And what was even cooler was that they were riding these awesome speeder bikes. It was just one of my favorite toys I got on Christmas Day in 1983, and just a ton of fun playing with this trooper and his speeder bike. And I think what stands out about this guy is his awesome helmet design. And it was just a breath of fresh air, because before that, for nearly 6 years, we knew of only one type of stormtrooper, and we thought that's all there was, and that's all there ever would be. So when these guys came out, it was just so cool. Great trooper design and a great figure. And at number 1, I picked Princess Leia Organa Boushh Disguise. Ever since I was a kid, I've been enamored with the bounty hunters from Star Wars. And Boushh showed up in Jedi, and I was like, oh, what a cool bounty hunter. This guy means business. And man, was I shocked with the reveal that it was Princess Leia under that helmet, speaking through that voice modulator. And it was just a really cool scene for me personally, and I loved playing with this action figure. I loved accessories with action figures, and the helmet was just really cool. And I just like the sculpt. I like her weapon that comes with her, and the helmet sculpt is really good on this figure. And the face looks really good also. I just can't say enough about how good of a figure this was, but it was just so much fun to play with as well as a kid. So I just eventually had to decide that this was my number 1 favorite Kenner figure from Return of the Jedi.
Mighty Jabba asks why he must pay 50,000.
Hey, Yotto.
Because he's holding a thermal detonator.
Alright, next I asked all my YouTuber friends that participated in this video what their very favorite vintage Kenner figure was from Return of the Jedi, and we'll start with my friend Brad, aka Rocket City Sith, and his favorite figure was the Emperor's Royal Guard. Next, my man Stu, the Universal Toy Collector, his favorite vintage Kenner figure is the Weequay. Next up was Peter from the PGM show, and his favorite vintage Kenner figure is the R2-D2 with pop-up lightsaber on one of the last 17 Power of the Force cards. Great choice. Next up, Jason, the middle-aged Kiwi man collecting Star Wars. Great channel. His favorite vintage Kenner figure from Return of the Jedi is Luke Skywalker in battle poncho. Another last 17 pick. Next, as a Star Wars fan, you can't ask for a better name than Luke, and this is Luke Reynolds from Reynolds Reviews, and his pick was the Princess Leia Organa and Boushh Disguise, just like me, and this is the only other YouTuber that picked the same figure that I did, so shout out to Luke. Next up is Dino from Geekstrong, great channel. His favorite vintage Kenner figure is Cy Snoodles, a really interesting pick, one I would not have thought about, but it is a very cool figure. Super John from the Super Awesome Geek Show, great guy. His favorite vintage Kenner figure from Jedi is Squid Head, awesome pick. Paul from Paul's Collectibles, helmet collector extraordinaire. If you're into helmets, you have to subscribe to his channel. His favorite figure was the Biker Scout. My man Steve-O, if you ever need a pick-me-up, just check out his channel, Collecting Star Wars, great channel. And his pick was the Biker Scout as well. Christian from Smuggler's Canyon, really funny dude. His favorite vintage Kenner figure, the Emperor's Royal Guard, awesome pick. Manga Fandanga, an amazing artist and brother to Shabbygeek, he picked the Biker Scout. The man, the myth, the legend, G-Force. And his favorite vintage Kenner figure pick from Jedi is salaciouscrumb. Interesting. Which leads us to our next YouTuber, everyone's favorite sexy and perverted quacking monkey lizard with a foul mouth and a heart of gold, salaciousrum. And what do you think his favorite Kenner figure was? You know what it is. It's salaciouscrumb. If you call yourself a Star Wars collector and you don't know who the bleckedoutewoks is, then you better ask somebody, because BOE is the man and he picked the Biker Scout. Scuba Pete from Chasing 80s Toys, one of the nicest and most generous guys in the community, he picked Han Solo in trench coat. Poor Shabby, I don't think I've ever seen this guy not smiling, but I asked him to keep a serious face for the clip he made for my video, so that's why he looks this way. But Jedi Knight Luke is his focus character, so I knew he'd pick this one. It's Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight outfit. The second third from the ZSR livestream is Tez Roland from Roland's Reviews, and his favorite pick is the Imperial Gunner. Cool pick. And the final member of the ZSR livestream is Matt from Zerotoyhunter Toys, and his favorite Kenner figure from Jedi is the Gamorrean Guard. Arguably the greatest Star Wars YouTuber from down under, Usual Mike from usualmiketelevision, and he also picked the Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight outfit. Next up is Andy from my favorite Star Wars podcast, the Holochronicles with Andy and Josh, and Andy picked the Biker Scout. Next is Chris from banthaskull.com and the Banthaskull YouTube channel. Great website, you gotta check out his articles. He picked Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight outfit. If you're a TVC collector, odds are you know this guy. It's John Miko from the Vintage Collection Facebook group. He also has a YouTube channel, and he picked Wicket W. Warwick. I don't know who this weird dude is and why he keeps ending up on my channel, but apparently he calls himself the actionfiguregrader. I'm just kidding. It's John the actionfiguregrader. He's the man. And his favorite vintage Kenner figure is Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight outfit as well. And if actionfiguregrader is around, chances are 5idiotstalkingtoys are not too far away. And this is Chris W. from 5idiotstalkingtoys, and his focus character is Pruneface, so this was an easy choice for him with Pruneface. This man needs no introduction in the TVC community. It's Tim from bossksbounty, and his favorite vintage Kenner figure is a tie between Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight outfit and the Biker Scout. He just could not choose between the two. That's okay, Tim. I'm just going to give you half a point for each one. And last but not least, the man of 1,000 impressions, it's Nick from onlyonekenobi. Only one. And his favorite Jedi Kenner figure is the Nikto. Okay, so I tallied up all the picks from the YouTubers that got multiple votes, and it came down to 5 figures at number 3 in a 3-way tie, 3 votes each. The Leia Organa Bausch Disguise, salaciouscrumb, and the Emperor's Royal Guard. Coming in second place with 4.5 votes is the Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight outfit. Awesome card back, great figure. And in first place with 5.5 votes is the Biker Scout. Clearly a fan favorite for a ton of Star Wars collectors.
Look, over there! Stop it!
Alright, next we'll take a look at my top 5 Return of the Jedi figures from the modern era made by Hasbro. And this can be from any Hasbro line as long as it is a character or a version of a character specifically from Return of the Jedi. And after we go over my top 5, we'll again go through my YouTuber friends' picks for their favorite modern Hasbro figure from Jedi. So let's take a look. Alright, when it comes to great figures, I tend to give the edge a little bit to the 3 3/4 scale over 6-inch scale, simply because it's so much harder to get detail into a smaller figure. But I had to give honorable mention to this Black Series Gamorrean Guard. This is a reissue, but it is just a fantastic figure. They nailed the details on this, and the cloth goods looks excellent. This is a must-have figure for collectors. I held off on buying this guy because he's just so expensive. I think at $33 or $34 US. But I just kept seeing him at the store and seeing him, and I was just like, man, I have to grab this. It just looks too good. So honorable mention goes to the Black Series Gamorrean Guard. Fantastic figure. All right, and kicking things off at number 5, I have another Black Series figure. This is the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett This one loose is the original deluxe version. Of course, it was just recently released on a card back from the 40th anniversary line. And this was an all new sculpt. It was a sculpt we desperately needed because they just kept reusing that Empire Strikes Back kind of outdated Boba Fett. That's not so great. But this one is an excellent figure, so I had to put it in my top 5. The next 4 I found very hard to rank. They're all very equally good, and this is Woof, who is basically Klaatu from the original Vintage Kenner version. He is VC24 in the Vintage Collection, and just an amazing figure. I love everything about this figure. They really did a good job. The helmet, the cloth goods, everything going on with the sculpt. The face sculpt. It's an excellent figure. And probably I knocked him down a little bit because of the card back. It's just not my favorite card back. At number 3, I have Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight, again from the Vintage Collection. This is my favorite Return of the Jedi card back in TVC. It is an awesome card back image. It's just perfect. It's easily in my top 5 favorite card backs. This is VC 175, and I think I ended up putting him at number 3 because although he is a great figure, there's still a little room for improvement. For example, I think the new Jedi Luke light cruiser for Mandalorian is actually a little bit better of a figure than this one, but it's still a great figure and an awesome card back, so easily deserving of number 3 spot. At number 2, I have another Vintage Collection figure. This is the Gamorrean Guard from Return of the Jedi, and he is every bit as good as that Black Series counterpart, but in a smaller package. It's VC21, and look at this guy. It's just amazing what they did with a smaller scale action figure. He is perfect. The only very minor gripe I have about this figure is his soft goods are just a little bit too fluffy. I actually prefer the Black Series soft goods in that manner. But other than that, this is a near perfect figure for the 3 3/4 scale. And again, massive bonus points for details on a 3 3/4 scale over 6-inch scale. So that's why he's so much higher than my Black Series one. This is an excellent figure and definitely a must-have for anyone's Return of the Jedi collection. All right, let the eye rolling commence, because Brett on Fett has picked Boba Fett yet again as a favorite figure. This is the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett on the Blue Sky card back, VC 186. This is an awesome figure, guys. I just can't help myself. It is a great figure. He's the best looking Boba Fett mold we've gotten to date. Prior to that, they just weren't up to par. You can pose him in some awesome poses. Now, he is a little bit outdated with the articulation. He does not have the barbell hips, for example, like the new Mandalorian figures. But that's okay because he looks so good. And, you know, they've reused him several times, which is I'm totally fine with because it is an excellent mold. This is what I was waiting for years, and it is one of my favorite card backs. I actually prefer the Blue Sky Boba Fett card back to the original classic one, so I was very happy when this came out. So this had to be my number 1 choice for Return of the Jedi figures. Alright, so once again, we'll turn to my YouTuber friends for their favorite figures, this time from the modern era of Hasbro figures, and Rocket City Sith picked the brand new Darth Vader Death Star 2. Universal Toy Collector could not choose between the Gam Guards, so he picked both the TVC and the Black Series Gamorrean Guards. That's okay, he'll get a half a point for each of those. Peter from the PGM show picked the Black Series Princess Leia Organa Bausch. Excellent figure. Middle-aged Kiwi man collecting Star Wars picked for his favorite modern Hasbro figure, the VC-186 Boba Fett. My man. Luke from Reynolds Reviews also picked the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett from TVC. Great minds think alike. And Luke is now 2 for 2 for picking the same favorite figures as me.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup!
Just like Stu, Dino from Geekstrong also could not choose between the Gam Guards, so he also chose both the TVC and Black Series Gamorrean Guards. Half point each. But Super John had no problem choosing. He went with the Vintage Collection Gamorrean Guard. No surprise that the helmet guy digs a cool Trooper helmet, so Paul's Collectibles went with the brand new TVC Scout Trooper. Steve-O from Collecting Star Wars also digs a cool Trooper helmet, but he went with the Black Series Biker Scout. Christian from Smuggler's Canyon knows a great figure when he sees one, so he went with the TVC Gamorrean Guard. Sai, aka Manga Fandanga, clearly loves the Biker Scout, so he's picked the Black Series Biker Scout. G-Force went with an interesting pick and a figure I really like. He went with the Return of the Jedi Imperial Gunner VC-232. Will Salacious cast his monkey lizard bias aside and vote for somebody other than his pappy? Well, kind of. He picked the 30th anniversary C-3PO and salaciouscrumb. Great figure. The legend that is the BOE knows his figures, and he picked the TVC Gamorrean Guard. Scuba Pete from Chasing 80s Toys also picked the Black Series Biker Scout. Black Series Biker Scout making a little run here. Shabbygeek still loves his Jedi Lukes, so he picked the Black Series Jedi Knight exclusive. Tez from Roland's Reviews picked the Black Series Boba Fett Deluxe version. Awesome figure. And Matt from ZeroToyhunter Toys reached further back and picked a great figure, Efont Mon from the 2002 Saga collection. An Aussie with impeccable taste, Usual Mike, picked the VC-186 Boba Fett. Good on you, mate. Good on you. And my man Andy from holochronicles came out of left field with the pick of Wicket. Great figure, just didn't see that one coming. And Chris from Banthaskull says this was a truly easy one. He went with the Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight VC-175. Another collector with great taste, John Miko, went with the Boba Fett VC-186. That's what I'm talking about. John the Action Figure Grader says he's going with the Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker as well, VC-175. Chris W. from 5idiotstalkingtoys is going to stick with his focus figure. That is Pruneface, aka Aura Marco. Tim from bossksbounty is going to go for the great card back and figure combo with that Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight VC-175 as well. And finally, for onlyonekenobi, I was very shocked. He was the only one that picked Woof as his favorite modern figure. This is an excellent figure, one that I actually had as number one for a brief moment before mixing it up some more. But yeah, that's a great figure. But onlyonekenobi is the only one that voted for Woof. Alright, so tallying up the YouTuber votes for favorite modern Return of the Jedi figure, we only had 4 figures that got multiple votes. And these two were a tie at 3 votes each. The Black Series Biker Scout and the Vintage Collection Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight. And then in second place with 4 votes was the Vintage Collection Gamorrean Guard, or Gamorrean Guard for my UK friends. And in first place with 5 votes, my YouTuber friends picked the Vintage Collection Boba Fett VC-186. See, it is not just my Boba Fett bias. This is an excellent figure, so I'm glad several others of you agreed with me. And I'll just wrap up this video with a look at some more Jedi loose figures. There's my Ewoks. There's the best C-3PO in the modern lines. There's the new VC-200 Emperor. There's that awesome Boba Fett, the champion. There's the Leia Bausch, Chewie, Skiffguard Lando, that awesome Woof, Nikto, and one of my favorite droids, the Bomar Monk. Alright, so that's going to do it for this special 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi episode of Brett on Fett. Let me know in the comments what your favorite vintage Kenner and modern Hasbro figures are from Return of the Jedi. Also, a huge thanks to all my YouTuber friends that participated. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to make the video clips and give me your feedback on your favorite figures from this film. Thanks as always to my subscribers. Don't forget you can also follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. Take care, and we'll see you next time.